Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Jerusalem's political leadership unanimously adopts a statement rejecting international diktats vis-a-vis a two-state solution. Qatar acknowledges that gaps remain in negotiations between Israel and Hamas about reaching a viable hostage release deal. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant contends that the Hamas leadership in Doha has lost all contact with its peers in the Gaza Strip. Jerusalem's political leadership is united in its path forward to return all Israeli hostages as soon as possible, while in parallel not to relent on Israel's war objectives against the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip. In an address to the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, which held its annual gathering here in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed the importance of solidarity between the Jewish diaspora and Israel, the nation-state of the Jewish people.
You know, I've been seeing you here year after year, but this year it's different. Each year you come here to express your solidarity with the State of Israel, the solidarity of the diaspora with the Jewish state. But this year, that solidarity is particularly important because it's an expression of unity between the Jewish people and the Jewish state, between so many of our friends around the world and the great trial that we are faced with today.
The Israeli premier went on to recount some of the October 7th atrocities which Hamas committed that forced Jerusalem to declare war.
We have faced an attack of savagery that is unparalleled since the Holocaust. We haven't seen such cruelty directed against the Jewish people since the Nazi genocide. We've seen children murdered in front of their parents, parents murdered in front of their children, women raped and beheaded after being raped. We've seen youngsters burned alive in death pits. We've seen mothers and babies kidnapped by these monsters. We've seen them rejoice over this savagery, something that even the Nazis refused to publicize. But they came in, these killers, with GoPro cameras to proclaim to the world, to their people, what kind of cruelty and what kind of inhumanity they were capable of. With fiendish glee, they showed this murderous, horrible action that puts us in front of a huge challenge. And our challenge and our goal can be summarized in two words: total victory.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to elaborately contend that while every civilian casualty is a tragedy, the IDF is doing far beyond legal international obligations to protect civilians in the battlefield, as was acknowledged by retired U.S. Major John Spencer, who currently chairs the Urban Warfare Studies at the Modern War Institute at the United States Military Academy in West Point. In this context, the Israeli premier lashed out at South Africa for alleging crimes of Israeli genocide at the International Court of Justice, while also vigorously condemning Brazil's President Lula for blatantly comparing Israel's defensive war against the internationally designated terror group Hamas to the heinous crimes committed by the Nazis during World War II.
South Africa accuses us of genocide. Can you imagine? South Africa accuses us of genocide when we're doing everything but genocide against a genocidal foe. And this is repeated, sometimes by world leaders. Today, the president of Brazil, by comparing Israel's war in Gaza against Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organization, to the Holocaust, President Silva has disgraced the memory of 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis, and he's demonized the Jewish state like the most virulent anti-Semite. He should be ashamed of himself.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also seized the opportunity to stress the need to apply pressure on Qatar to pressure the Islamist Hamas to agree to an agreement that would see all of the hostages returned back to Israel without further delay.
The release of hostages can be achieved through strong military action and tough negotiations, very tough negotiations. That tough position has to involve the exertion of pressure. And the exertion of pressure is not merely on Hamas itself, but on those who can exert pressure on Hamas, beginning with Qatar. Qatar can press Hamas as no one else can. They host Hamas leaders. Hamas is dependent on them financially. And I urge you to press Qatar, to press Hamas, because we want our hostages released. I hope that we can achieve a deal soon to release more of our hostages. But deal or no deal, we have to finish the job to get total victory.
It is important to highlight that during the annual Munich Security Conference that took place over the weekend, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani voiced skepticism over progress being made, citing a lingering gap in positions.
You know, the time is not in our favor. We made some good progress in the last few weeks in the negotiations, and we've been trying to reach an agreement between the two parties, yet the last few days has not been progressing as expected, and I believe there are still differences in place.
The gap relates to a long list of Hamas demands, which are known to be a non-starter for Israel. And while Hamas remains obstinate in its position, there is a growing belief among top Israeli security officials that the main cause for the uncompromising stance emanates from the fact that the leadership of Hamas in Gaza has essentially been unreachable. Moreover, according to Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the leadership of Hamas, which is situated in the Qatari capital of Doha, is looking for a new leader to substitute Yahya Sinwar in the Gaza Strip.
תחנת חמאס עזה אינה עונה. אין עם מי לדבר כמנהיגות בשטח, והמנהיגות חוץ מחפשת הנהגת פנים. זאת אומרת, יש מכרז של מי ינהל את עזה. אין גורם ששולט, אין גורם שפועל. ולעומת זה, הלחימה שלכם, נדבר עכשיו על 98 על חטיבותיה, אבל זה נכון גם למה שקורה בצפון הרצועה עם 162 ובהגנה עם 143. התוצאות הן מאוד מרשימות, ואנחנו הרי יכולים להגיד היום שחטיבת ח'אן יונס הוכרעה. חטיבת ח'אן יונס לא מתפקדת כגורם צבאי בשום דרך. הם נשארו עם שוליים במחנות המרכז ועם חטיבת רפיח, ומה שעומד ביניהם לבין מיטוט מוחלט כמערכת צבאית זה החלטה של צה"ל. זהו, וביצוע שהוא באחריותכם. אין פה מי שיבוא לעזרתם, אין איראנים, אין סיוע בינלאומי.
While the IDF is awaiting a policy decision by Jerusalem's top political leadership regarding the expansion of its military operation into the town of Rafah, which is the last bastion of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, U.S. President Joe Biden said he expects Israel to hold off any massive land invasion as Washington continues to pursue a temporary ceasefire.
Well, first of all, I've had extensive conversations with the Prime Minister of Israel over the last several days, almost an hour each. And I've made the case, and I feel very strongly about it, that there has to be a temporary ceasefire to get the prisoners out, to get the hostages out. And that is underway. I'm still hopeful that that can be done. And in the meantime, I don't anticipate, I'm hoping that the Israelis will not make any massive land invasion in the meantime. So it's my expectation that's not going to happen. There has to be a ceasefire temporarily to get those hostages. And by the way, we're in a situation where there are American hostages. American citizens are being held hostage. It's not just not just Israelis, it's American hostages as well. And, my hope and expectation is that we'll get this hostage deal, we'll bring the Americans home, and the deal is being negotiated now, and we're going to see where it takes us.
While President Biden is evidently eager to hold off Israel's offensive on Rafah to grant the Islamist Hamas the opportunity to reach a sort of compromise, Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz stressed in a film statement that unless all of the hostages are returned to Israel immediately, Israel will continue to fight even during the month of Ramadan.
לא תהיה הפסקת אש אפילו של יום אחד עד שיוחזרו חטופינו. ובכל מקרה, הלחימה תימשך עד להשגת כל מטרותינו. חשוב שמחבלי החמאס וראשיו ידעו, לא יהיו בעזה הרי מקלט מעל או מתחת לקרקע. גם בחודש הרמדאן המתקרב האש יכולה להימשך. או שיחזרו חטופינו, או שנרחיב את הלחימה לרפיח, ואנחנו נערכים לכך. נפעל בשיח עם שותפינו בהם מצרים, נפנה את האוכלוסייה ונפעל.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Separately, I'd like to continue encouraging you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Essen wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our upcoming TV7 Israel updates. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.